This is incredible. Okay, everybody, I brought you here to the shores of Lake Michigan tonight, and it's dark and it's uh-oh. I gotta wait a minute. I'm kind of hoping this isn't the cops. Okay, it's not the cops, but they're sitting up there watching me, which is not the coolest thing to have done when you're doing this. But anyway, what I've done is I brought you guys over here to the shoreline of beautiful Lake Michigan tonight, where it's kind of creepy, as you can tell. And I hope you can hear the the waves in the background. This guy's got me a little off nerve here. But anyway, I've got this incredible moonrise happening right now over the lake, and I thought I'd bring you out here and show you a couple of things that I'm going to be doing with it for tonight. Wow, that's pretty cool. What I want to do is set up a little bit closer to the shoreline. Now, anyway, first off, welcome to Northlight Photographic Workshops, or welcome back to it if you've been here before. I'm Bill Schwab, and I'm up here in northern Michigan, and I'm on the shores of Lake Michigan right now in Cross Village, Michigan. And I'm here, actually, I was coming to bring you over to take some celestial photographs. I was hoping to do some things of the Big Dipper setting, which is an incredible thing in itself. Rather than doing a sunset, what's cooler than getting the Big Dipper setting over the lake? So we're here to do that, but when I came over, the moon was rising up, and I just couldn't help but get centered on that right now to try to photograph. So what I'd like to do is try to explain to you a little bit about what I go through when I'm making these kind of shots. Now, as you might know about me, is I do a lot of nighttime photography, but photographing the stars in the sky like this is kind of new for me. Normally I was a Detroit boy, and now I live up here in northern Michigan, and there's a lot of different things to photograph at night, and one of them is the incredible sky. And what I've thought about doing in the future is giving you a little bit of a tutorial on shooting the Milky Way and things like that. But tonight I thought that I'd bring you over here for this incredible setting of the Big Dipper, and we're going to get to that. But right now I'm going to work on this moonrise, and I'm going to kind of shut up before I lose it. Now what I'm doing is I'm shooting normally at a very high ISO when I do these kind of things. Now with a digital camera, you have so many more capabilities with night photography because the sensors are so sensitive to the light and to the wide spectrum of light. So it's really nice and easy to make nighttime photographs, and especially star photographs with a camera. Now, one of the things that I'll tell you before I get into this right away is there's a rule of 500 that I follow, and basically what that is I use the millimeter of my lens, I divide that into 500, and then that gives me my my exposure. Like tonight I'll be shooting with a 24 millimeter lens, so that goes into 500 20 times, so that gives me a 20-second exposure that I want to work with. And what that exposure does and what that means, I can see the moon. I'm looking at the monitor right now and I can see the moon behind me. What that does is it prevents anything in the celestial sky from looking like it's moving. As you know, the Earth spins, unless you're a flat earther, which is kind of whatever. But you know, the Earth is rotating, so as it's rotating, the sky moves at night. And if you're taking too long of an exposure, your stars will move. And I'm sure that you've seen photographs like that where there are star trails and things. That's not really what I'm after right now. What I want to do is I want to see the sky as I see it with my naked eye. I want to be able to see, you know, stars, and I don't want to see them streaking across the sky. So by using the rule of 500, I am getting an exposure that doesn't show that motion, is what I'm saying. So by using a 20-second exposure with a 24 millimeter lens, I'm going to get the appearance of still stars in there. Now, the other thing that's a problem to do at night when you're photographing is finding your focus, because when you're shooting stars and your camera normally has your camera is normally has an infinity setting on the lens. Now, that's very rarely a sharp shot at infinity. So basically, if I go by that marking in the dark and I put my lens on that infinity mark, I'm not going to get a sharp image. So what I want to do is I want to focus on a sharp point of light that's in a long distance away. And tonight, what is more perfect than that, than the moon? So what I'm going to do right now is turn around and focus. So you're going to see the back of my head here a little bit. And what I'm doing is I'm getting first off, the first thing you want to do is turn off your autofocus. Autofocus is going to go crazy at night trying to focus in on whatever the subject is. So I always switch off my autofocus to begin with. And now I'm making my focus on that beautiful moon there. It's looking pretty cool. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm working at 20 seconds, okay? So on this image, I'm not going to shoot at a very high ISO because there's a lot of ambient light there in the sky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a 20-second exposure. And I am shooting this one. I'm going to shoot it at f8 to begin with, right? Let's try that. And that'll help make up a little depth of field and maybe a little bit of the sharpness if I need it. So here we go. And another thing that I wanted to tell you is I always set the camera on self-timer, on timer. So that way I've got my camera, my hands off the lens and off the camera, and it's not shaking around. It has a chance to settle out before it makes the exposure. So it's making its 20-second exposure right now. And when it's done, I'm of course going to look at it on the LCD and we'll see where we are. And I can adjust my exposure from there. So there we are. So now you can see how it's looking in there, but I'm not really getting enough of the ambient light. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my shutter a little bit, and I'm going to go all the way to f2.8 and shoot it at 20 seconds and see what we get. Now the sky, of course, the moon and everything will blow out into bright white, but what I'm looking for is some of the ambient light around in the sky. So here we go. I'm going to open it up, stay at 20 seconds, and I'm going to open it up to f2.8, and we're going to make another exposure. So once again, I've got it on time. It's going to take 10 seconds before it makes the exposure, and that gives the camera a chance to settle out before it makes the exposure. There we go. It's exposing right now. It's an incredible night. It's northern Michigan here at the beginning of November, and it's about 40 degrees right now, but I'm not in my overcoat and I'm not up with gloves on, which is a great thing. Although we've had some snow already. I know the last videos I've done were of the fall colors and things, and I'll get to a little bit more of a daylight video later on, but you'll see that there aren't many fall colors left anymore. Oh, okay, so there's my exposure now. You can really see it there. Now the other thing is that I want to get a little bit more of the point of land in there, so I'm going to make my exposure a little bit more to the right. I'm going to turn my camera. That's another beauty of the digital camera and looking at the LCD screen at night, is that you can kind of compose and see what your shot's going to be like. So let me do that. I'm going to pan a little bit to the right. Now the other thing that's happening is I'm down here in the Cross Village shores, and there's way off there's a sodium vapor light that puts a little bit of a red glow into things that you don't really perceive with your eye, but the camera does perceive it, and I think it's going to work really well because I'm going to see the edge of the shoreline in my shot slightly with a glow of red in it. So let's try that exposure now. There we go. Isn't this fun? Nighttime. Northern Michigan, beautiful starry sky. What more could you ask for? We're making the exposure now. Should whistle you a tune or something, hey? I can whistle pretty good. Here we go. Ooh, there we go. It's really nice. I'm sure that you can see that now because I'm showing it to you in the video. Wow. Now, one thing that I'm noticing is one of my big problems with photographers is they don't know how to get horizons straight very often, and it's just a pet peeve of mine. It drives me crazy because especially if you're taking a picture of a lake shore and it's leaning like that, unless it's some creative thing you're doing, it's tough to handle in landscape photography because you just feel like the water's gonna run out to that side. Anyway, I've got the horizon a little a little crooked. So one of the cool things about the digital camera, and I use a Nikon D810 by the way. I'm not, you know, Nikon gives me nothing. I wish they did. Wouldn't that be nice? Anyway, I like to look at live view, and I set this up with my level in there, and as you can see, my level isn't quite right there. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to get that line green, and that sets my level up, and then I tighten things down, and I know I'm now at a level horizon. So with that, I'm going to make another exposure. Yeah. And so yeah, this is bonus, eh? You know, I get the moonrise. I knew the moon was going to be coming up. Last night I came over here to check this, and last night the moon was a little bit higher. You know, every night you lose a little bit of that, and the moon comes up a little bit later, and I wanted the moon to be up when I was shooting the sunset, because I mean the dipper set, because I wanted a little bit of ambient light in the sky to show around the stars and that kind of thing. So you'll see what I mean. Wow, look at that. Huh. Okay, cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the exposure down a little bit. You know, I think what I'm going to do is just kind of go down to 10 seconds. I don't need to blow out to the 20-second rule as far as like what I was telling you about the 500 rule. I don't really need to do that 20 seconds with this scene because I've got plenty of light coming from the ambience and the moon itself. So let's go down to a 10-second exposure. That's basically cutting one stop out of the image. Now, most of you probably know about aperture and stops and ISO, things like that. If not, that's something I might get to in another video at some time, but maybe there's plenty of places on the web where you can find out information about that. Kind of thing that all photographers should really know, so I'm kind of guessing you already know that. There's my exposure. There, a little darker. A little darker. But then what's happening is I'm seeing a little bit of ambient light that's streaking across, that's lighting up the shoreline here. And, you know, I mean, it is what it is, but it's a pretty cool shot. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in. I've got to zoom it. This is a 24 to 70 zoom on here. And I'm going to zoom a little bit more in on the scene and do something like that. Now, of course, I'm not trying to stop the moon from moving because it's so blown out anyway. So that doesn't really matter. I mean, I won't use the rule of 500 on that. What I'm trying to do now is cut out that little bit of foreground that's in there, kind of red, and I'm just going to focus on the light and the horizon and the nice point of land coming out over there, over Sturgeon Bay. That's the wilderness point out there. Anybody who might look this up on a map. There we go. We got our focus down. If you're watching right now, I really thank you for hanging around and keeping a lookout over my shoulder right now while I'm out here in the woods. I'm not in the woods, I'm on the shoreline. It's a nice beach. I'll show this to you sometime in the daylight. Anyway, I'm going to check my live view, look and see that I've got my horizon correct and level. And I do. So here we go. Let's make our exposure. Now I am zoomed in a little bit more, so it will change my exposure slightly, but it won't be a huge amount. There, ooh, look at that, oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna swing over and get a little bit more of the point of land over here. There we go. Oh my goodness, this is really nice. Anyway, let's go with that. Another 10 seconds before it starts to expose, then 20 seconds of the exposure. Now the other thing is, I tend to shoot at a higher ISO, which gives you a little bit more noise, a little bit more grain. If you were using film, it would be grain. That's a little bit more noise. Now another thing that you can use is your noise reduction in your cameras, and a lot of your cameras will have that setting. And basically what that does is it takes your initial exposure of say 20 seconds, and then it does an exposure afterward of 20 seconds, but it doesn't open the shutter up. It just takes a black screen image, and basically what that does is it goes in and it helps filter out all of that noise over the image that you've already done. But I don't like to use it that much. Sometimes with point sources of light, it can be kind of strange and give you a haloing effect, and I don't really like that so much, so I tend not to use that. I don't mind a little grain. You know, grain's supposed to be there. There we go. That's quite nice. Anyway, Moon's getting a little higher now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset up here, and I'm going to get a little bit more set up to do the dipper behind me, because as I can see, it's getting nice and low right now, and I think that this is going to be quite nice. All right, so I've got myself situated a little differently now. So I'm looking out over the lake, basically kind of to the northwest, a little bit more north than northwest, and I've got the Big Dipper here. It's coming down over the lake now, and it's kind of at an angle, pointing up a little bit toward the north. I've got the ladle out here, and it's going off toward the North Star up here, which I'm not going to have in this shot. I'm basically just trying to photograph in on the image itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and use my 500 rule, and I'm going to take a first shot with a 24 millimeter zoom on this, and I'm just going to shoot it at 20 seconds. Now what I've done, what you want to do in a situation like this is, knowing that I have that 20 seconds to work with, I like to use my ISO and my aperture as my other adjustments. You know, it's basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go up to a higher ISO. So because there's just so much darkness in the sky, I'm going to try to shoot this one at about a 1600 ISO at a 20 seconds, and I'm going to try it wide open right now at f2.8. So let's see what happens with that. So I'm going to my 20 seconds again, and I'm at 2.8. I've got my camera leveled off really well. I've already done that, so I know that I've got my horizon level. So let's just go with the exposure and see what happens here. And again, I'm on self-time here because I want to make sure that the camera's still. Now you can hear waves coming in the shore. I'm very close to the shoreline, and I have to be careful that they're not going to move the camera at all. They're not. I'm not that close. It's great. I set this up so you can see the moon going up in the background here. Oh yeah, really nice. Huh. Okay, it's a little bright. I'm going to cut the shutter back a little bit. I'm going to cut the ISO. I'm not the ISO. I'm going to cut the aperture a little bit. I'm going to go up to like an F. I'm going to go up to an F4. And here we go. That's incredible. Another thing that happens at night when you're out here is that your eyes start to adjust, and you can start to see a lot more than you really think you can. You know, right now I can see the whole horizon of the lake and the stars and the Dipper kind of going down into the lake. It's beautiful. And you should be able to see that from my exposures here so far. Oh yeah, okay, so, all right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. So that'll change my rule. I'm going to go up to, like, say, I'm going to go right up into, let's see what I've got here. I can see my Dipper. I want to zoom in and get kind of, and I'm probably going to be around 50 millimeters. So, you know, putting that into the 500, okay, so that gives me, you know, I'm going to cut this back down to a 10-second exposure now. And therefore, I'm going to have to kick up my ISO. So I'm actually going to go up. I'm going to double that. I'm going to give myself another stop by doubling my ISO from 1600 to 3200. So there we are, 3200. And we're going to go 10 seconds here. All right, we'll see what happens. I've never done a video like this out at night, so I'm hoping this works out. We're exposing right now, 20 seconds. There we go. Wow. This is going to be cool. I mean, you can see it already. Okay, so let's make a few more exposures. Just hang with me here, all right? Wow. Now, another thing I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the horizon very low to the frame. You know, I want mostly sky in my shot, so basically you're going to see that line there. So far I've had it down a little bit farther. I'm going to move it up. I'm going to move the sky a little higher. So I'm going to move the horizon a little closer to the bottom of the frame. I'm going to double check and make sure that I've got my level on here. Because again, like I say, there's nothing worse than a crooked horizon to me. Not to say that your creative crooked horizons aren't good things. Not my cup of tea. Okay, here we go. Let's try this one. Now what's happening is it's very humid tonight, so there's kind of a light fog starting to form over everything. I notice it when I've got my self timer going on in the camera. It shoots out a little beam of light, and I can see the beam of light in the fog. So that's kind of affecting the shot as well. And I also can see a bank of low clouds over here to the left. So I'm just going to kind of keep taking images and putting them up in the video here so that you can see kind of what I'm doing. But basically I'm doing this all using my ISO. Wow. I'm using my ISO as my adjustment. Now, some of these are going to look almost like daylight to you. That's kind of what I'm going for. Because you can see the sky, and you can see the dipper, and you can see the stars through the light sky as well. Now I'll do a few exposures where I'm going to darken it down and do it a little, I'll darken the sky down a little bit so that you see more stars and a little less ambient light. But you get the idea. Yeah, I'm going to cut my exposure now a little bit. Let's go down to 6 seconds. That'll darken things up a bit. It's an incredible night, and I'm going to keep making some exposures here, and if I get a couple other good things, I'll throw them up in the video. But basically I wanted to thank you for hanging out with me tonight. It's my first nighttime video, and I know it's not all that exciting because you can't really see the environment that I'm in, but you'll get the idea from more daytime videos that I do, and also you'll see the images that I'm making right now as they've been coming up in the videos you've been watching this. So I'm hoping I got some information across to you on how to do this. We'll do a little bit more, and like I say, I'm going to go out some night and we're going to do the Milky Way as well. Winter's coming here and we get some really cold, crisp nights, and it'll be fun to do some nighttime shooting then. And if we get some nice moonlit nights like that, I'm sure the video will pick that up with the ambient light reflecting up off the snow. So we'll get to that as well in the future. But for now, I'd like to thank you. If you enjoyed yourself, give me a thumbs up. Maybe subscribe if you haven't already. I really enjoy doing these. I enjoy having you along, and I hope you've had a good time. Oh, another thing I'd like to say is thank you all very much for watching these. I'm closing in on 4,000 watch hours now, which makes me be able to monetize this channel. Now, I know that doesn't mean much, and not a lot of people are watching, and it's not going to make a whole lot of money, but it's fun, and it's been a goal of mine this year. I started this series back in February, and I'm amazed that it's gone this far. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm really glad that those of you that are following along have done so. And another thing is I'm really happy that you've made some nice comments, and I've had some nice private letters that have been really nice, and it's great hearing from you all over the world and having people watching these. So I hope you'll stick with me. And anyway, take care of yourselves, and I'm going to go back to shooting here.